My Apache neighbor tried on the ring and asked, "Tell me, was this made for me, blacksmith?" The blacksmith's shop stood at the edge of the town, where the dirt road thinned into open land and low hills. Every morning before the sun fully rose, the sound of hammer striking iron echoed through the quiet air. Sparks jumped like small fireflies, and the smell of hot metal mixed with dust and wood smoke. People in town knew that sound well. It meant work was being done properly. The blacksmith was a man of few words. He was not rude, just careful. He listened more than he spoke. His hands were rough and scarred, shaped by years of labor, but his movements were steady and calm. He believed that good work did not need loud praise. If a tool lasted many years, that was enough. He had come to this border town after a war ended, carrying little more than his tools and his skills. The town was not large, but it was busy enough. Farmers needed plows fixed. Travelers needed horseshoes replaced. Wagons broke often on rough roads. The blacksmith worked from sunrise until the light faded, and then sometimes longer if someone was desperate. Most people treated him with respect. Some tried to talk, asking about his past, but he rarely shared much. He did not speak of where he came from or what he had seen. The forge gave him peace. Iron made sense to him. It bent when heated, resisted when cold, and never pretended to be something it was not. Next to his land lived an Apache woman. Her small home stood a short distance away, near a line of cottonwood trees. She had lived there before the blacksmith arrived, and she stayed when others moved on. The townspeople noticed her but did not truly know her. Some avoided her. Others watched her too closely. She kept her distance and asked for nothing she could do without. She walked with quiet strength. Her posture was straight, her steps sure. She did not rush, but she never wandered without purpose. When she passed through town, conversations lowered. Eyes followed her. She noticed, but she did not react. Years of living among people who did not fully accept her had taught her patience. At first, the blacksmith and the woman barely acknowledged each other. They were neighbors by land, not by choice. A short nod when paths crossed, nothing more. But over time, small moments created awareness. One afternoon, she brought a broken metal clasp from a leather strap. She stood at the edge of the forge, waiting for the right moment to speak. The blacksmith noticed her reflection in a metal plate before he saw her directly. He set his hammer down and wiped his hands. She explained simply what she needed. Her voice was calm, neither soft nor sharp. He took the clasp, examined it, and nodded. No questions, no comments. She returned the next day, paid fairly, and left without delay. That was how it began. After that, she came occasionally. A bent knife handle, a loose hinge, small things, always practical, always necessary. She never lingered, but she did not rush away either. Sometimes, while waiting, she watched him work. He noticed her eyes following the process, the fire, the shaping, the cooling. She seemed interested, not impressed, just attentive. The blacksmith did not mind. He was used to silence, but her presence felt different from the rest of the town. She did not look at him with curiosity or suspicion. She looked as if she was learning something, even if she did not plan to use it. In the evenings, after closing the shop, the blacksmith often stayed behind. When the forge cooled and the town grew quiet, he worked on small pieces of metal. Things that were not ordered, hooks, simple shapes, sometimes rings. He did not sell these. Making them helped him think. He never planned the designs. He let his hands decide. A ring would begin as a thin band, nothing special, but he gave each one care. Smooth edges, balanced shape, no sharp corners. He believed even small objects should be made with respect. One evening, as he worked, he realized the Apache woman was passing by. She slowed near the open door, not entering, just standing where the light from the forge touched her face. He stopped hammering. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just present. "You work late," she said. "Metal cools slow," he replied. She nodded as if that answer made sense beyond the words. Her eyes fell on the table where several small metal pieces lay. One ring caught her attention, resting alone. "That one," she said, pointing. "You selling it?" "No," he answered. "Just practice." She did not reach for it. She only looked. Then she thanked him and continued on her way. After that, the blacksmith found himself thinking of her more often than he expected, not in a way that unsettled him, but in a quiet, persistent way. He noticed how the land near her home was kept clean and ordered, how she repaired what she could instead of replacing it, how she spoke plainly without trying to impress. The town, however, did not share his calm view. Whispers traveled easily. Some people did not like that the blacksmith worked for her without complaint. Others said nothing but watched closely. The border town was shaped by old fears and older wounds. Not everyone believed those wounds could heal. The blacksmith understood this, even if he did not agree with it. He had seen enough division to recognize it. He kept his distance in public. He did not invite conversation. He did not defend her openly. That silence weighed on him more than he admitted. One morning, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Rain fell hard, turning the dirt roads into mud. The forge roof leaked near the corner, and the blacksmith worked to move tools away from the water. Through the rain, he saw the Apache woman struggling with a damaged wagon wheel near her home. Without thinking much, he took his tools and walked over. The rain soaked his shirt, but he did not stop. She looked surprised but did not refuse his help. They worked together in silence, lifting, steadying, fixing what could be fixed until the wheel held again. When it was done, she looked at him and said, "You did not have to come." "I know," he replied. That was all. No thanks were spoken, but something passed between them. An understanding that help given freely carried its own meaning. That night the blacksmith returned to his forge and picked up the ring again. He studied it longer than before. He realized he had shaped it with unusual care. The size, the curve, done without thought, yet precise. He did not tell himself it was for her. He did not allow that thought to settle, but he placed the ring apart from the others, wrapped it in cloth, and set it where it would not be lost. Outside, the rain stopped. The town slept. And between the steady land, the quiet forge, and two lives moving carefully beside each other, something had begun, slowly, quietly, without anyone naming it yet. Life in the border town returned to its usual rhythm after the rain, but something had shifted quietly beneath the surface. The blacksmith noticed it first in small ways. The forge felt less lonely in the evenings. The silence, which once felt empty, now felt full of thoughts he did not try to push away. The Apache woman continued her routines as before. She rose early, gathered what she needed, and moved through the land with calm purpose. But now, when she passed the blacksmith shop, her steps slowed just a little. Sometimes she looked toward the open door, where the glow of fire painted warm shapes on the walls. Sometimes she nodded to him if he was outside. These were small gestures, almost unnoticeable, but to the blacksmith they carried weight. She returned a few days later with another simple request. A metal hook on a storage box had loosened and bent. She placed it carefully on his workbench and waited. This time she did not stand at the doorway. She stepped inside the shop, keeping a respectful distance from the fire. "You can sit if you want," he said, surprising himself. She considered the offer, then sat on a low wooden stool near the wall. The sound of hammer and metal filled the space again. She watched closely, her eyes moving with each strike, each change in shape. The blacksmith worked steadily, aware of her presence but not distracted by it. When he finished, he handed her the repaired hook. She tested it with her fingers and nodded. "You work with patience," she said. "So does metal," he replied. A faint smile touched her face, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. She paid him and stood to leave, but before stepping outside, she paused. "My name is Ayana," she said. He looked up, meeting her eyes fully for the first time. "I'm Thomas." It was a simple exchange, but it felt important. Names carried weight. They made people real. After that day, their conversations grew slightly longer, still careful. Still guarded, but real. She asked about how long iron needed to heat. He explained. He asked about the land near the cottonwood trees. She told him which plants grew best there and when the ground turned hard. Sometimes she brought small items not because they were broken, but because she wanted them improved. A knife balanced better, a clasp smoothed so it would not catch. She paid fairly and never asked for special treatment. Thomas noticed how she never wasted words. She spoke when needed, listened when not. That respect mattered to him. The town noticed too. A few people began to whisper more openly. Some wondered why Ayanna visited the blacksmith so often. Others hinted that Thomas was being careless. He heard these comments while working, spoken just loud enough for him to notice. He never replied, but each word added pressure like heat building under metal. One evening, a traveling merchant stopped by the forge. He looked around at the tools and the unfinished pieces on the table. "You make jewelry too?" the merchant asked, pointing at the rings. "Sometimes," Thomas said. "You should sell them. Folks pay good money for fine work." Thomas did not answer. He covered the rings with cloth when the merchant left. Later that night, Ayanna passed by again. She did not come inside. She stood near the doorway, her eyes catching the faint shine of metal beneath the cloth. "You hide your work," she said. "Some things aren't meant for trade," he replied. She stepped closer, not touching anything, just looking. "Everything made has a purpose," she said, "even if the maker does not know it yet." Her words stayed with him long after she left. Days turned into weeks. Summer heat settled over the land. The forge grew hotter, the work heavier. Thomas found himself pacing his effort, resting more often. Ayanna noticed. "You push too hard," she said one afternoon. "Work doesn't wait," he replied. "Bodies do," she answered calmly. The next day she brought him a small bundle of dried herbs. "For strength," she said. "Take it or don't, it's your choice." He accepted it without comment. That night he brewed the herbs into a simple drink. It tasted bitter, but it eased the ache in his shoulders. He did not tell anyone, but the next time she visited, he nodded once in thanks. One evening, Thomas worked on the ring again. He adjusted its edge, smoothing it further. He told himself he was only improving the balance. Still, his thoughts drifted to Ayanna's hands, strong, steady, marked by work and weather. The next day she noticed the ring more clearly. It rested on the table uncovered. "You changed it," she said. "Yes," he replied. "Why?" He paused, then said honestly, "It didn't feel finished." She studied the ring without touching it. "Some things are never finished," she said, "only ready." That night Thomas lay awake longer than usual. The words echoed in his mind. Ready for what? He did not know. Trouble came quietly, as it often does. A local man confronted Thomas outside the shop one morning. "You're getting too friendly," the man said. "People are talking." Thomas wiped his hands on a cloth. "People always talk." "This kind of talk brings problems," the man warned. "For who?" Thomas asked. The man did not answer. He walked away. Thomas stood there for a long time after, staring at the road. He understood the warning. He had lived long enough to know when peace was fragile. That evening, Ayanna did not come by, nor the next day. Thomas told himself it meant nothing. Still, he found himself looking toward the cottonwood trees more often. On the third day, he saw her walking toward town with a basket. Her steps were steady as always, but her face looked tired. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "just busy." He wanted to say more. He did not. Later, she returned to the forge with a small piece of silver-colored metal. "I found this near the river," she said. "It's soft but strong." Thomas examined it. "It's good material." "Could you shape it?" she asked. "For what?" She looked at the table, then at the ring. "For something meaningful." He understood then that she was not asking only about metal. "I can," he said. He worked carefully, shaping the metal into a simple band, similar but not the same as the ring he had already made. When he finished, he placed both rings side by side. Ayanna looked at them in silence. "Which one?" she asked. Thomas hesitated. The air felt heavy. "That depends," he said slowly, "on who it's for." She picked up the first ring, the one he had made earlier. She turned it in her fingers, then slipped it onto her hand. It fit perfectly. She looked at him and asked quietly, "Tell me, was this made for me, Blacksmith?" The question did not sound demanding. It sounded honest. Thomas felt his chest tighten. He did not answer right away. The forge crackled softly behind him. Outside, the town moved on, unaware of the moment unfolding. He realized then that the ring was no longer just metal. It carried intention, whether he had meant it or not. And his answer, whatever it would be, could not be taken back. The silence stretched, full and fragile, waiting to be shaped like iron under heat. The question stayed between them, quiet but heavy, like iron resting in the fire before the hammer strikes. Thomas did not move. Iana did not remove the ring. The forge crackled softly, filling the space so neither had to rush an answer. Thomas finally spoke, his voice low. "I did not plan it for anyone," he said truthfully, "but I made it with care." Iana studied his face, not searching for excuses, only meaning. "Care comes from somewhere," she replied. "Hands follow the heart even when the mind is silent." Thomas looked down at his hands. They had shaped many things, tools, parts, repairs, but never something that caused his chest to feel so tight. "If I say yes," he said slowly, "it changes things. If you say no," she said just as calmly, "it also changes things." The honesty between them felt sharp but clean, like a blade well made. Iana removed the ring gently and placed it back on the table. "You do not have to answer now," she said. "Some truths need time." She turned and left the forge without another word. Thomas stood there long after she was gone. The ring lay where she had placed it, still warm from her hand. He wrapped it in cloth again, more carefully than before, and set it aside. That night, sleep did not come easily. Thoughts rose and fell like sparks, each one asking him what he was willing to risk. The next days passed slowly. Iana did not return. Thomas focused on his work, but his rhythm was off. His hammer struck harder than needed. His timing slipped. A small mistake bent a piece beyond repair. He had not done that in years. People in town noticed. A few customers watched him more closely than before. Some looked curious. Others looked concerned. Whispers moved faster now, no longer hidden. Thomas heard his name paired with hers, spoken with doubt and warning. One afternoon, an older woman who often brought farm tools for repair lingered longer than usual. "You should be careful," she said softly, as if offering advice, not judgment. "This town remembers old wounds." "So do I," Thomas replied. She nodded but looked unconvinced. That evening, Thomas saw Iana near the riverbank gathering reeds. He hesitated, then approached slowly, making sure she saw him coming. "I've been thinking about your question," he said. She did not stop working. "Thinking is good. I don't want to give you an answer that brings trouble," he continued. She straightened and faced him. "Trouble comes whether we invite it or not. What matters is how we stand when it arrives." Her words were steady, but her eyes held something deeper, experience, not hope. Thomas realized then that she had already faced the world's judgment many times. The risk did not scare her. It challenged him. "I made the ring while thinking of no one," he said carefully. "But when you asked about it, I knew I did not want it on anyone else's hand." Iana listened without interrupting. "I don't know what that makes it," he added, "or what it makes us." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "It makes us honest." She did not ask him to give her the ring. She did not ask for promises. She simply nodded once, as if accepting a truth already known. The town did not accept it so easily. Within days, small signs of change appeared. A delivery was delayed without explanation. A supplier raised his prices. A familiar greeting turned brief, then vanished altogether. No one said anything directly, but the message was clear. Thomas felt anger rise, but he kept it under control. He had survived worse than silence. Still, he worried for Iana. He did not want her to carry consequences for something he had allowed to grow quietly. One morning, he found a stone placed carefully at the entrance of his shop, marked with a simple symbol. He knew it was not meant as threat but as warning. Someone wanted him to understand that eyes were watching. That evening, Ayanna came to the forge again. She looked around before stepping inside. "They are watching you," Thomas said. "They always have," she replied. "This is different," he said. "Now they think I'm choosing sides." She met his gaze. "Living with truth is choosing a side." He exhaled slowly. "I don't want harm to come to you. Nor do I want fear to decide for us," she answered. She reached into her pouch and took out the ring. "I did not come to claim this," she said. "I came to return it until you are sure." Thomas shook his head. "I am sure." She studied him carefully, then nodded. "Then I will wear it not as a promise but as a choice. If the cost grows too heavy, I will not blame you." He handed her the ring, this time without hesitation. She slipped it onto her finger again. It fit as before, like it had always belonged there. For a brief moment the world felt still. The calm did not last. The following week, a group of townsmen visited Thomas's shop together. Their words were polite, but their meaning was firm. They spoke of order, of peace, of not stirring old troubles. They asked him to think carefully about his actions. "I am thinking," Thomas said. "Every day." "That may not be enough," one of them replied. After they left, Thomas sat alone in the shop. He understood now that this was no longer only about feelings. It was about standing firm in quiet ways, about choosing dignity over comfort. That night Ayanna did not come by. Instead, Thomas walked to the cottonwood trees near her home. He stopped a respectful distance away and waited. When she appeared, she looked surprised but not upset. "They spoke to me too," she said before he could ask. "I'm sorry," he said. "Do not be," she replied. "Pressure reveals truth." They stood beneath the trees, the sound of leaves moving gently above them. "Whatever happens," Thomas said, "I will not pretend this was a mistake." Ayanna smiled faintly. "Then neither will I." As they parted, neither knew what the next days would bring, but both understood that something had already changed. The ring was no longer just metal. It was a line drawn quietly, without anger or force. And in a town shaped by fear and memory, that quiet line mattered more than anyone yet realized. The days that followed felt heavier, as if the air itself carried weight. Thomas continued to open his forge each morning, light the fire and work the iron, but nothing felt simple anymore. Every sound seemed louder. Every pause felt watched. He did not change his habits, yet the town reacted as if he had. People came less often. Some crossed the street instead of passing his shop. Others entered, asked for work, and spoke only what was necessary. Payment was placed on the table without meeting his eyes. Thomas accepted it quietly. He had never worked for praise, and he would not stop now. Ayanna felt the change too. When she walked through town, conversation stopped completely. Doors closed sooner than before. Children were pulled closer to their parents. She kept her head high, her pace steady, but inside she measured every step. She had lived through this kind of silence before. It was not new. What was new was knowing someone else was sharing the cost with her. They did not meet as often after that. Not because they did not want to, but because every meeting seemed to add more pressure. When they did see each other, it was brief. A nod, a few words, a shared understanding that did not need sound. One evening, Thomas noticed smoke rising near the cottonwood trees. Not heavy smoke, but enough to worry him. He left his forge and walked toward it. When he reached Ayanna's home, he saw her outside, controlling a small fire meant for cooking. Everything was fine, but the way she watched the horizon told him she was uneasy. "You shouldn't come here so often," she said quietly when she noticed him. "I go where I need to," he replied. She looked at him for a long moment. "Your presence brings eyes." "So does yours," he said. She did not argue. Instead, she asked, "Do you regret it?" The question surprised him. "No," he answered without thinking. "Do you?" She shook her head slowly. "I regret only the pain it brings others, but truth itself is not something I regret." They sat in silence, watching the fire die down. The ring on her hand caught the fading light. It was not hidden. She did not try to cover it. That choice alone spoke loudly. The pressure from the town did not stop at silence. A shipment of iron Thomas had paid for never arrived. When he asked about it, he was told there had been a mix-up. Another supplier refused new orders without explanation. Work slowed. Money grew tight. One morning, Thomas found a note nailed to the side of his shop. It was short and unsigned. It warned him that peace depended on wise choices. He removed it, burned it in the forge, and returned to work. But the message stayed with him. That night he walked alone, thinking deeply. He had rebuilt his life once before. He knew what loss felt like. But he also knew what it meant to live without self-respect. He could not undo what had grown between him and Ayanna, nor did he want to. Ayanna faced her own trials. Members of her community came to speak with her, not in anger but in concern. They warned her that standing beside Thomas could make life harder for everyone. They reminded her of survival, of patience, of choosing battles carefully. "I have chosen carefully," she said. "I choose honesty," some understood, others did not. She accepted both reactions calmly. One afternoon, Thomas injured his hand while working. It was not serious, but enough to slow him down. Ayanna noticed the bandage the next time she passed by. "You should rest," she said. "I can't afford to," he replied. She frowned slightly. "You cannot afford not to." That evening she brought him food without asking. She left it at the door and walked away before he could thank her. The next day she brought more. Word spread quickly. Some saw it as kindness. Others saw it as defiance. Thomas felt torn. He did not want her generosity to become another reason for blame. He spoke to her about it gently. "I do not give to make a point," she said. "I give because you are tired." That answer ended the discussion. The breaking point came quietly. One evening, a small group gathered near the forge. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They stood there waiting. Thomas stepped outside to meet them. One man spoke for the group. "Things are changing," he said, "and not for the better." "Change is not always harm," Thomas replied. "It is when it divides," the man said. Thomas looked at each face. Some he recognized, others were strangers. "Division was already here," he said. "I just stopped pretending it was." The group left without another word, but the message was clear. He was no longer welcome in the way he once was. That night, Thomas did not sleep. He sat in his shop, staring at the forge long after the fire died. He considered leaving town. He could take his tools and go somewhere new. He had done it before. The thought brought relief and shame. Before dawn, he walked to the cottonwood trees. Ayanna was already awake, tending to her tasks. "They want me gone," he said plainly. She did not look surprised. "And what do you want?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Leaving would be easier." "Yes," she said. "Easier is often the loudest voice." He looked at her. "If I stay, it will get harder for you too." She met his gaze. "My life has never been easy, but it has been honest." They stood together as the sun rose. The light filtered through the leaves, soft and steady. "I will not ask you to stay," she said. "And I will not ask you to leave. This must be your choice." Thomas nodded. "Then I choose to stay." The decision did not bring peace, but it brought clarity. The days that followed were tense. Some customers returned quietly. Others never did. Thomas adapted. He repaired what he could, reused materials, worked smarter instead of harder. Ayanna helped when she could, not openly but wisely. Slowly, something unexpected happened. A few people in town began to speak differently. Not loudly, not proudly, but they asked questions. They noticed that nothing terrible had happened. The sky had not fallen. Life continued. A child waved at Ayanna one morning. A woman nodded to Thomas as she passed. Small things, almost nothing, but not nothing at all. The ring remained on Ayanna's hand. It became familiar, no longer a symbol of challenge but of presence. She wore it while working, while walking, while living. It was simply there. Thomas realized then that this part of the journey was not about winning or proving anything. It was about enduring, about choosing calm over fear, about letting time do what force never could. As summer began to fade, both knew that the hardest days were not behind them, but they also knew something else now. They were no longer alone in their choice. And that, more than acceptance or approval, gave them the strength to keep going. Time moved forward as it always did, slow but steady. The border town did not change overnight, but small shifts began to show, like cracks in hard ground after long heat. Thomas kept working. Every morning he opened the forge, cleaned his tools, and lit the fire. The sound of hammer on iron returned to its steady rhythm. People noticed that he had not left. Some were surprised. Some were uneasy. A few felt relieved, though they did not say it aloud. Yana continued her life as she always had. She tended to her home, gathered what she needed, and walked through the land with quiet strength. The ring stayed on her hand. She did not explain it. She did not defend it. It was simply part of her now, like her name, like her steps on the earth. At first the town kept its distance, but work has a way of bringing people together. A farmer's plow broke badly during harvest season. No one else could fix it in time. Reluctantly, the farmer came to Thomas's forge. Thomas did the work carefully, without comment. The farmer paid him and said thank you. It was awkward but real. Soon after, a wagon axle cracked on the main road. Travelers needed help quickly. Thomas worked through the night to repair it. Word spread. Skill was harder to ignore than fear. Yana noticed these changes, not with hope but with patience. She understood that trust did not return all at once. It grew slowly, like roots under dry soil. One evening, Thomas sat outside his forge, resting his hands. Yana approached quietly and sat a short distance away. They did not speak at first. The sky turned orange, then purple, then dark. "You stayed," she said finally. "So did you," he replied. She nodded. Staying is its own kind of work. They shared a small smile. Winter came early that year. Cold winds swept through the town and supplies grew limited. Thomas's forge became important again. Broken tools needed fixing more than ever. He worked harder, his hands aching but his purpose steady. Yana helped where she could. She brought wood when she found extra. She shared food during the hardest weeks, not just with Thomas but with others too. Some accepted quietly. Some hesitated, then accepted anyway. Hunger softened pride. One night, a child from town fell ill. The family did not know what to do. Someone remembered that Yana knew about herbs and remedies. After much hesitation, they came to her home and asked for help. She did not remind them of their past silence. She did not ask for apologies. She helped. The child recovered slowly. Word spread again, this time differently. Not with fear, but with gratitude. Spring returned, gentle and patient. Flowers grew where the ground had once been hard. Thomas repaired his roof, reinforced his forge, and found himself smiling more often, though quietly. Yana spent more time near the river, gathering plants and watching the water move forward without resistance. They spoke more freely now, though still simply. They did not make plans far ahead. They lived one day at a time. One afternoon, Thomas showed Yana a small wooden box he had made. "It's not finished," he said. She examined it carefully. "It doesn't need to be perfect," she said. "It needs to be honest." He smiled at that. Inside the box was space for the ring when she chose not to wear it. Not because he wanted to take it back, but because he understood that even meaningful things needed rest. "I made this for you," he said. She accepted it, her eyes warm. "Thank you." The town slowly adjusted to the new normal. Not everyone approved. Not everyone understood. But fewer people cared enough to resist. Life demanded attention elsewhere. Fields needed tending. Children needed raising. Time did what arguments could not. One evening, during a small gathering in town, Thomas and Yana stood side by side. No one made a speech. No one stared. It felt ordinary, and that ordinary feeling mattered more than any grand moment. Later that night, Thomas walked Ayana home. They stopped beneath the cottonwood trees, where so much had been decided quietly. "You once asked me if the ring was made for you," she said. "I remember," he replied. She held up her hand, the metal catching the moonlight. "I think the better question is this," she said gently. "Was it made to remind us who we are?" Thomas considered this. "If it did," he said, "then it did its job." She smiled, and in that smile was peace, not excitement, not promise, but something stronger: understanding. Years later, people would remember the blacksmith and the Apache woman in simple ways. Some would say he stayed when leaving would have been easier. Others would say she wore a ring that changed nothing and everything at the same time. Thomas never became a leader. Jana never became a symbol. They lived quietly, worked honestly, and shared their days with care. The ring remained simple. It did not shine brightly. It did not demand attention, but it held meaning, shaped by fire, patience, and choice. And in a town once ruled by fear and memory, two people proved that respect could be forged without noise, and that sometimes the strongest bond is the one that asks nothing more than truth.